Hey, Typical Punk's Adventure here. So, in a previous video, I kind of talked a bit about my financial journey and how I was in 20 grand of debt and how I got out of that, and how I'm in a better spot and looking into ways to grow my savings as well as potential investing. And in this video, I thought I'd kind of share some of the research and the things I have looked into with that. Because not always are side hustles something someone wants to look into. Although for me, I kind of use that as a way to leverage some of the money that I've earned from side hustles and use that as, part of my savings as well as investing. So that's not coming from my, full-time job. And if you'd like to know more about that in terms of like the Amazon on-site commissions, I do have, a video for that, kind of going through the process, how I got started with all of that. And so with all that said, like I mentioned, I've recently dived into the world of finances and learning a bit more about growing my savings. Now, of course, there are different ways to do that, with none of them being wrong, but there are some that are better than others. And I think one important thing to ask yourself is with investments or savings, are you looking for something that is short-term with gain or something that's more long-term? Now, honestly, the answer is still going to be kind of the same in terms of that, because with savings or investments, you are able to pull as needed. Of course, with investments, there's probably fees and things that apply. But outside of that, there isn't too much of a difference in terms of short and long, other than maybe the amount of money you make, unless you're looking at things that have specific terms, which I'll get into next. So one of the first options I looked into was CDs, or certificate of deposits, which were through my credit union. There's a type of savings account that kind of offers a fixed interest rate that you would earn throughout the period of the term that you've chose. Now, one of the options or recommendations I looked into was laddering, and that involves opening 5 CDs. So you have one that's 12 months or a year, and then 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, and then once the first one ends, you create a new CD for 5 years, and that creates a rolling effect of the CDs earning and growing based on compound interest. And with my credit union, I believe it was like a 3.7% up to a 4.1% that you could earn based on those, with the 4.1 being a 5-year term. And then I looked into a money market account through my credit union, which is just another savings account that offers a nice balance between convenience and a higher yield for savings compared to like a traditional savings account that you might have. And while those are two great things that my credit union offered, I decided to chat with my buddies who's been doing this a bit longer in terms of investing and savings and things like that, just to kind of get his opinion on the matter. And that's where he referred me to wealthfront, where I ended up opening a high yield savings account, which offers a higher interest rate than a traditional savings account. And also with that, their rate is typically higher than the national average, meaning your money is growing even more. And with that, I believe they had a 4% interest rate when I had opened my account, so technically 0.1 lower than the CD I could have opened at my credit union, but the 4.1% would have been for 5 years, so my money would have been locked for 5 years in that term, whereas this, I can access it whenever, and it's growing at 4%. And also, because he had referred me to it, I had his code, and I'm getting a 0.5% boost, so the money that I have in my high yield savings account is actually earning me 4.5% right now, which is awesome. And so with that, I decided to basically take most of the money out of my savings account at my credit union and moved it all over to the high yield savings account, essentially going from a 0.4% APY to a 4.5% API, which would then drop after 3 months down to 4%, but still, we're going from basically pennies to dollars, so definitely awesome. I wish I would have done it sooner, but better late than never. And so that was one of the things I did with, looking into saving and growing my money. The next thing I looked into wealthfront was investing. Now, of course, you can just go the traditional route and choose how you want to go about investing, but I didn't want to dive headfirst right into that, and my buddy had recommended their automated investing, which seemed a bit better, a bit safer. So you kind of answer a couple of simple questions, and then it will generate your risk based on that. When I first did it, it gave me a risk of a 7.5 out of 10, which to me seemed pretty high. When I asked my buddy about it, he said that seemed about right. But I decided to sit on it for a couple of days because it's still just seemed a little bit high to me. But when I took the risk assessment or questionnaire again, I am getting a 4, which then seemed a bit lower. So you can actually move the toggle around a bit if needed, and I ended up moving up to a 6 where I kind of felt a bit more comfortable there. And the automated investing will typically kind of pick from a mixture of US stocks, corporate bonds, tips, and as well as dividend growth stocks, and then more. And that kind of helps diversify the investing. But like all things, there's always going to be risk, even if your risk level is low. I think ultimately, if you're in it for the long haul, then it's going to be fine. If you're looking for a quick short gain for something and then the stocks go south and go low, then yeah, you're going to lose. Or if you end up pulling early and you pay into the fees where you haven't earned as much. But otherwise, if you're just letting it sit, I think it's not a problem. If you end up doing a quick flip and you come out on top and you decide maybe you want to take that money and then invest it into a riskier stock to try and gain more, or a lower risk one, then that's also a possibility too. Or maybe you don't want to do the automated route afterwards. Maybe you want to take that money out and invest into a specific company or stock, something along those lines. Now I will say one thing with the automated investing, wealthfront does handle those kind of investing accounts a little bit different. So anything between the amount of 500 to 5,000 will be handled differently, but it doesn't have any effect in terms of long-term investing. So as I mentioned, when you're answering the questions on Wealthfront and they're kind of assessing or building out the risk for you, that also means that they're picking out the mix of investments available to you. But when you have less than 5,000 in the investment, there's going to be a bit more deviation on the target that you're trying to reach in terms of them building out the portfolio. And that's not to say you can't. Like I said, their accounts start anywhere between 500 and up. So if you were to ingest just 500, doesn't really mean anything. You can still invest into it. It just means that you may not see as big of growth as you would with having more money in there. And it also means that you're going to want to leave that in for a long term versus a shorter term, essentially. And another thing that can be handy is that Wealthfront does have a mobile app. Now I don't have it installed on my phone right now, but that is nice if someone is wanting to check those things. I personally try to not check numbers and things as much, just because that doesn't appeal to me. The money's just staying in there, and hopefully it will just keep continuing to grow. And I can't emphasize this enough, but I am not a financial guru, so please do your own research, do what's going to be best for you. I'm just essentially sharing my journey and my experiences so far. But if you come across this video and would like to sign up with a Wealthfront account and would like to have your traditional savings actually be boosted and using a high yield savings account, I will put my referral link in the description below. If I remember, I'll also put it here in the video just so you can see that as a reminder as well. But I am happy with finally making this change, just so I can actually see growth happening with my savings instead of it just being savings, essentially. And one more thing to kind of end this video on, there's still plenty to learn, lots for me to learn in terms of other things I can do. I think the next step is looking into my 401k. My coworker had mentioned switching it over to a Roth 401k, or even just having a Roth IRA. And there's some stuff in terms of switching that over, and I understand the benefits of having them, but there is a process and I'm not sure on that. And then there are also like certain brackets or thresholds in terms of income, or how some of that works that my coworker tried to explain, which was a bit scary, and I kind of pushed back, and we just haven't had a chance to meet on that. But I think that's the next thing I want to look into in my journey in terms of that. So depending on how that goes, maybe I'll have a video for that. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this video. So again, if you're interested in signing up with a high yield savings account or even looking into investing, I think Wealthfront is a good part or place to start, and I'll have my referral link down below. But stay safe, stay healthy, and we'll see you in the next one.